Hello everybody, I'm Antonitsky, and in this little tutorial I'll show how to set up a simple rock shader in Keyshot. It's really easy. However, I found that there isn't much information on how to do it. There's some from Keyshot official videos, but not much of information available. I also sell these rocks as an asset pack on Gumroad, and I include all the shaders. But if you want to learn the techniques, how to sculpt the rock, I have a tutorial on that, and this is a tutorial on how essentially to put the material together for it. Okay, let's start. So I have just a regular rock that I imported from ZBrush. Well, essentially I decimated it down to 900,000. You can see the polygon on my left, and then imported it here in Keyshot. So it looks, a little bit dull if you just apply the default material without showing any curvature or ambient occlusion. And that's essentially what you want to do. So I won't really go around the interface of Keyshot. I'll just use the tool that you need to know, and I'll only show the handful of maps that I use, nothing else really. I just want to keep it simple. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's pick the rock and hit edit material. Here you can see the material graph. Let's hit on that, and that's what I get, right? You just have the blank gray material. If I pick on this guy, okay, that doesn't speak properly. Yeah, it's slightly more complicated, but it's really simple shading network. And if some of you guys are familiar with Substance Painter, it'll be really easy and no-brainer for you. And I mean, comparing to Substance Painter and Substance Designer and networks, this is just so easy. Yeah, let's go back to the rock, and I'm clicking on it and it doesn't do anything. Let's hit on there. Okay, so first of all, if you want to add a color on top, right, you want to introduce a new material, and you hit right click in the blank space, material. I'll just go for diffuse, right? So if you want to mix these two together, you just drag and drop it here. It will be represented as a label 1, so we can mix a lot of materials all together. And if we pick this color to be red, it will cover the whole material. It's hardly, no, because there is no masking on it, so it will just cover it all. And if I create the new material, diffuse, put it here, label 2. Well, it's actually, it will move that one underneath. It will be on top, and it will fully cover it on the guy on top. So we have really create a couple masks to combine all these two materials and create a nice, rock texture. And to do that, we will go into textures. So what I want to start with, I'll start with occlusion mapping. So I want to intensify the occlusion that's going on there, and I will use it as part of the color of it. Okay. And if you click C, you will see the actual representation of the map. Again, really similar to Substance Painter and Designer. Right now it looks white, and guys, it's really important. One thing that's really important in Keyshot is really tight. It's really tight to your scale. If your object is too big or too small, you'll have to adjust the options. So the scale is will often give you issues. So I guess you can see I'm raising the radius, and it starts to show through. So I'll probably need something like 10. I'll type it in. 10 fall off. Let's I'll just play with the sliders all the time, seeing how they affect each other. And it's still pretty big. Yeah, 50. What about 150? Okay. Okay, here we go, right? There's a little bit of occlusion happening right there. If I click C, I will go back into my mode, default mode. I'll see the actual material. And if we connect this occlusion to the opacity, like this, we'll be able, the blackness of the ambient occlusion will mask out this material, and you can see it's starting, the underlying material that's red is starting to show through. Okay, so you can say, well, I don't want this particular situation happening, I want it to be inverted, right? So there are a couple things you can do. You can use the color invert and plug it into opacity, right? So it does the job, but the color invert is really a binary node. It only does one thing, so I don't usually use it that much at all. I use the utility called color to number. Color to number can do a number of things. This is essentially your color levels, or like level adjustments in Photoshop, and it also can do the inversion, right? So I'll just go through the inversion. Output from, I'll put it to 1, and output 2, I'll pick it to 0. So okay, I've inverted the map doing this little operation. So then if I want to make it, and actually I'll just click C on this so it will be more evident. I want to intensify it just by sliding it down, essentially. You can make it, you can add more contrast doing sliding it in and out, right? Okay, so now we have this. Okay, I'll leave the ambient occlusion for now. It's doing the job. It's filling the cavities. Maybe this is a blue sand. Well, we can change it to any color, but I'll keep it as blue so it's it will be much easier to see. And let's just do the curvature map. Okay, I'll go to the textures, right click, drop down menu, curvature, and let's press C and see what it does. Okay, you can see really faint lines. They have two colors, red and blue. And to see them better, we need to play with sliders a little bit. So we put the cutoff down, it will start slowly to show through. I usually deal with it as just black and white mask. I'll just put it all to black. You can like use different channels, red and blue. I won't really talk about it in this tutorial, I'll just keep it simple. But there is a number of options when you can apply different type of masking, different type of procedural noise to each color. But let's not go into that. Okay, so we got our black and white map. Again, if we plug it in here, you can see that we really need to, well, right now it looks alright, but usually I keep the edges quite light, so I'll actually make it white. Well, not white, but I'll keep it in some kind of lighter, some kind of lighter value. And I'll actually, let's make diffuse red, so it will be easier to see what's going on. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to use the same utility, the color to number. Again, doing the same thing, 1 and 0. Okay, now we've pretty much got the main idea behind this rock. It's really the same. I would just, here you can start tweaking colors and such, so it's really simple, right? I mean, it's kind of slightly simplified, stylized rock. Obviously I'm dealing with really high, with a lot of polygons here, so I already created a lot of noise in ZBrush, a lot of texture and sculpting details that is shown through the shaders. Let's probably make it... I like to play around with colors and try to make it some kind of unusual combination, as you can see from my other videos. Taking like making an ambient occlusion blue, the sand around blue, and the actual shader like red. So it's quite fun to play around and really easy. Okay, the second part of this tutorial will be more about adding some noise. So essentially, if I zoom in on this rock, it won't have any, like detailed texture as you would always do. In, for example, in Unity or Unreal, you would apply some detailed texture on top, so it will always hold up a resolution. It will always hold the resolution. I don't want to wait for forever, but again, just open the a render, and you can see the detailed texture pretty much happening right here on the left side. So you can see that the cracks are losing their definition because they are really, the rocks have been scaled up quite a bit, and without the bump that's going on here, it won't really hold up. And by the way, this is the same setup: ambient occlusion, curvature map, quite stylized, rock set. Okay. So what do we do for that? Okay, we'll go to textures, and let's use the granite. You can use bitmaps. I prefer just to stick to the procedurals, maybe because of my substance designer background. I've done a bit of that, and I like to keep it all procedural. Unfortunately, you don't have that much of functionality as you have in the substance designer, but at the same time, it keeps it simple. Okay, so let's proceed and take a look how this looks. So it's just a whole bunch of noise, looks way too tiny, so I'll scale it up by 10. Let's scale it by just 30 just to see it through. Yeah, now it's a pretty good detailed texture map. We've got a bit of stuff going on there. Right. So let's plug it into bump by default. Bump, yep. So every time you do this, it starts. If you drop the line and connection inside, it will offer you a choice where to go. And now we have it here, and it will only it will only apply to bump, obviously. So we have the texture applied there. Let's make it a bit more radical so we can see it at least a little bit. Let's put it to 10, and it will be really visible. Okay, I've put it. I waited for a while just to render it through a little bit, so we can start to see a tiny bit of bumpiness going on there, like this blackness. Usually it's tricky to see. Well, the whole reason for this map is not really to distort any existing detail, but just to add it on a close-up. So you can see it's going on there a little bit. I tried to bump it to 100 to see it more, but I think 10 is more than enough. It also really depends on your lighting, and that will really change your look and visibility of the bump. So one of the things is that maybe you want to connect the curvature mask with the bump mask, right? And to do that, what you can do is you can blend stuff. And where was it? Okay, this second part I'll talk about adding some noise. So essentially what I want to achieve is to create this type of detailed texture on the rocks. You see that when the rocks are really scaled up, when there is a close-up on the rock, all these cracks, they go quite blurry and they won't really give you a nice impression. So to sell this a little bit, I've applied this noise, this bump. It's also mixed with the ambient occlusion in color, so the ambient occlusion starts to bleed in and, you know, spread around, so it will look a little bit natural. I would still say this is quite stylized appearance. I really wasn't going to any super photoreal texturing and mixing a whole bunch of noise. It's really simple, but it serves my purpose and it's good enough. Okay, here we'll add a texture granite. Press C here. You can see a lot of stuff going on there. It's like brownish. I want to scale it up by 10. Actually, I'll make it more like 30, so you'll be able to see it. Also, the color here is brown. I don't really know why it's brown. I wanted to keep black and white, so I'll be able to use it as a mask, as a black and white mask. Here. Okay, let's just, if we apply it as a Bitmap, and we go double click on the material, and here in this section it's already got some scale, and let's put Bitmap to 100 just to make it really visible. Okay, I waited for a few seconds so you can see it's showing through. There's a little bit of noise there, here and there. The aim of this noise is not to be really visible on the distance, but really to show up on close up. So even the scale of the noise right here is probably a bit too much, but I'll keep it as this for demonstration purpose. I'll probably put it to 10 otherwise, you know, but let's keep it 30. 30 is good. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to mix these bump like cavities with the ambient occlusion. So first of all, I want to create a new color to number node just specifically for this granite map. So I will always have the control over the, you know, how much contrast I have here is quite important. So to blend this occlusion and granite noise map together, what I want to do is I want to add a color composite node. It's essentially a color blend from Substance Designer. Okay, so here I'll put it as background and see it's all black. Okay, so it's all black because we want to change the blending mode. So right now source is overlying on top and source is black, there is nothing there. So if you do something like screen, we will be able to see the ambient occlusion. However, I made a mistake here, a little mistake. I've picked it from the wrong connection. I want to start picking it from the original ambient occlusion, which is like this. Okay, and let's put it here. Actually, I want to multiply. So right now this map, it already has quite a bit of white, so when you multiply it on top, it will just only use the dark noise that's like go on top of the ambient occlusion. And I'm looking here, I'm double clicking on the color to number. I want to increase the contrasts more like this. Okay, so this color composite I want actually to to input it here to invert mode, right? So now we have it inverted and all combined on top. And you can see now the blue ambient occlusion is coming through. Yep, it's coming through, and it's coming through on top of the curvature map, which I don't really want to. I want the curvature whiteness to be on top of all this noise. I mean, it depends on you, but in this case, I want the curvature map to be on top. So what I want to do is I want to just rearrange the labels here, the material order. So I'll just delete that and put it on top like that. Okay. So you can see it starts to get a little bit more complex. So I'm reusing the same node map, this and that way. I can just use the color to number bump. It's up to probably actually I cannot really do that. No, I cannot really do that. I can only use the bump node or like procedural black and white map here to add to bump. I actually not sure about all the, not sure why is it not allowing me to plug in the black and white bump map in. I'm not really an expert on all the Keyshot material graph, but I'm just sharing my thoughts and my making ofs of the materials. Okay, so we've got that. Let's change it to something less annoying, even like like dark brown. Yeah, essentially this is the main idea behind my texturing, using some color combinations to sell the look of the rock. But one thing I haven't mentioned is you see that the material here is really simple. It's the basic one, doesn't have any specularity control, so it's pretty much dull color, right? So if you switch from diffuse to advanced, you'll get this specularity control, and well, you can do whatever you want with that, create your masks and such. I think for my rocks, I just kept it super simple. I just reused the granite noise map, which may sound a bit ridiculous because it's just a plain. I'm not even masking out, the edges or anything. It's only a little bit of variation using the noise mask all over the whole rock. If you want to do a more complex thing, you can start doing the color composites. You add color. Well, you can actually, for example, reuse this guy, right? This hasn't been inverted yet. You can reuse the ambient occlusion plus the granite. So I'm waiting for a few seconds. So you can see it's really shiny. But I'm achieving the goal that I wanted. It is that ambient occlusion is dirty with the sand or some material, so it's not shiny. But everything else is really shiny. So I need to reuse the color to number again, just for the specularity. And what I want to do here is I want to make it less shiny. Okay. Something like this. Yeah, let's wait for a few seconds. So it's much duller, maybe even too dull, but yeah, that's the basic idea. Here you can see I've used the noise map just all over. What I started to create, which the effect that kind of I started to enjoy in the end, is you can see these specular highlights that are super bright. But the thing is that you can see that type of, specular noise and different type of sand in real life. So I decided that it's kind of cool stuff. I'll keep it as it is. And also you can see the parts that which are completely, don't are devoid of any specularity, just a black on the specular map. They look like these black specks. They're pretty cool as well. So I was actually happy with with the result of just plugging in noise into specular map. But you can go, add more and more and mask it out to each other. Like you can start combining different maps as different type of noise, as spots and scratches. Also granite on top, so you'll get a pretty complex noise that can drive your anything. You can be an extra addition to ambient or curvature or specularity control. Well, let's really quickly do that. The fractal noise. Background. Okay. The scale there is way too tiny. 10 and 10 here. Probably like 50 and 90. I can try to see what happens if you add a mask, if you use it as mask, in both cases. That doesn't help there, but I'll apply it just like a separate color composite. So we'll go in the source, and this will go in the background. Multiply, press C to see the node. Okay, so you're seeing where I'm going with this. So I'm breaking the regular noise with some other stuff, and I can plug it in back to our existing occlusion control, occlusion color composite, and see how it looks there. And you can see stuff happening there. Also including the ambient occlusion. I'm just trying to see. It starts to like spoil my color to number. I'll have to play around with that because it starts to clip out all of my ambient occlusion. Yeah, so you can see it's starting to get a little bit messy. I'm pressing Ctrl to pick all those nodes and move them around. But it is still quite a simple network compared to usual, substance painted construct. So yeah, those are my thoughts and how I used it on my rocks. I hope you found them useful, and also a link to a video from a Keyshot official channel. They talked about their maps a bit more. I did my own turn on it. I showed how I used their advice on and applied it to rocks, because essentially Keyshot is more used in product design and on product presentation, not that much in environments. But I thought that would be quite interesting for other people, and I'm really glad that you stayed with me and watched the tutorial. Thank you. Oh yeah, and just the final look, just compare left and right. Left is where I just dialed down all these numbers and made it much more subtle, you know, or just hues of brown and red, and right is just really an example to show what's going on there with the maps. And that's it.